Great. Good morning. Welcome back. It's now time for us to get into this. Karibu sana. It sounds like a Monday. No, it's Tuesday. Hello, it's Tuesday. The second day of June 2026, right in the middle of the year. Right in the middle of the year. Let's do this. Dr. Anthony Gitonga, who is a governance expert, Daniel Juma Mondi, Africa Regional Representative, Global Peace Foundation, and Shadrach Wamboi, advocate of the High Court, the three wise men, as I promised during the introduction. They're here. Gentlemen, let's talk about Kenya 63 years. But 63 years of what? Karibuni sana.
Asante.
Good to see all of you. Before that, let me take you through the front page of the local dailies. Let me start with the Standard. Ebola Center? No. That is on the front page. Ebola Center? No. That is on the front page of the Standard. There were some demonstrations yesterday in Nanyuki and better part of Laikipia. Nanyuki town erupted in protest as furious residents stormed the streets to oppose a proposed Ebola quarantine facility, paralyzing transport, forcing businesses to close, and triggering clashes with police and soldiers in a standoff that is fast escalating into a major political and public health controversy. Despite government assurances that the facility and negotiations are above board, more Kenyans are preparing to demonstrate against its establishment. That's on the front page of the Standard, and on the Daily Nation it's more or less the same thing but different approach. Ruto silent on Ebola. Okay, Ruto silent on Ebola. It was the High Court actually will today hear a petition seeking to block the Kenya-US deal on the killer virus that is on the corridors of justice today, despite growing public opposition to Kenya hosting an Ebola isolation facility for Americans exposed to the deadly virus. President William Ruto avoided any reference to the matter during his Madaraka Day address on a day protesters marched to the gates of Laikipia Air Base, where reports indicate installation of the facility is underway in defiance of a court order. All right. Shadrach Wamboi, an advocate of the High Court, this must be hurting you to the deepest part of your being. Karibu sana.
Thank you very kindly, Victor.
Yes.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
Karibu.
Kindly accept the warm greetings from the people of Kajiado North.
All right.
So I say hi.
Okay, how are they doing?
They are well. Yes, we're just keeping on. Yesterday we had our Madaraka Day celebrations at the Ngong Stadium.
Yes.
It is a stadium in quotes and quote. Because what was hoped to be a stadium, you know, it's just a disaster. Yes. I think there was a lot of pilferage and stealing from public resources that what we intended to be our stadium never was. I mean, it's also very disheartening that we are seeing people in Wajir celebrating about the Ahmed Khalif Wajir Stadium, which was just recently constructed, which is very far away from where all materials come from. Yet in Kajiado here, where everything actually comes from, we have the soil, we have the stones, we have everything coming from our county, and yet we do not have a stadium worth the title. So it's quite unfortunate, but I think in the fullness of time, people who are responsible for what we are currently enduring will be taken into account.
You're saying that with a purpose?
Of course. I mean, you see, a threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Yeah.
So really, if we do not make mention or highlight certain injustices that we are facing as a country or as a community, then it means we will not be keen on what is happening in Laikipia or elsewhere.
Yeah.
So if charity begins indeed at home, it is important that I highlight what is happening at home, the kind of disadvantage that we've been put in. I mean, we were supposed to have a stadium, an international stadium, but we are celebrating our Madaraka Day and our tent, you know, using movable plastic chairs. So it's not very kind to the people of Kajiado.
And that highlights what I'm just about to talk about today. 63 years of Kenya's 63 years of what?
Corruption. It's 63 years of corruption. It's 63 years of you know, us being misled. And of course, as a people, we also bear the responsibility of acknowledging that most times when we are called upon to make our political choices, we use you know, we use very queer factors to determine who becomes our leader.
Yes.
I have mentioned before, and I will mention it now, that we use our emotions and our stomach as the guiding, you know, the guiding pillars towards where our vote will be directed to, which is quite unfortunate. And until and unless we wake up and we start reasoning, you know, rationally about the quality of the leaders that we want to have as our representatives, then we will continue, you know, suffering from the same problems:
yes.
disease, poverty, and of course illiteracy. Yes, those will be the problems. Those are the problems we have endured for the last 63 years. Those are still the problems we will continue to endure for the last 63 years. And indeed, we even added corruption.
Exactly. Doctor, when you look at the reflection, because we are now reflecting on Kenya's progress and present realities.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that he's talked about is corruption. He's talked about corruption. But we also look at devolution and the progress that we've made so far.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to give you the pointers, but in your own reflection, 63 years of what?
Thank you, Victor. As always, it's good to be here. I think for me, it's 63 years of, it's a delicate mix, Victor.
Yes.
All right. Remember, in the 63 years, we're talking about 15 years of Jomo Kenyatta. We have 24 years of Moi, 10 years of Mwai Kibaki, 10 years of Uhuru Kenyatta, and about 3 years of this current regime. If you look at that entire history, I mean, we have made some pains and we have made some gains. We're talking about a new constitution. We're talking about devolution. We're talking about, you know, enhanced democratic space. We're talking about a growing economy. All right. We have made some gains along the way. But I don't think it's optimal, and I want to agree with Wakili here that we could have done better as a country, all right? And that is why you hear everybody complaining that it's about 63 years of pain, all right? We still have a lot of our young people, you know, educated and without proper jobs. We still see a lot of corruption and scandals in government, you know, without getting to see anybody take responsibility. Yeah, so it's 63 years of, I wouldn't say we have, we haven't achieved much, but I would say that we haven't optimized what we could have achieved, all right? So it's a lot of gain, a lot of pain more than gain. If you look at where we are today, you cannot tell me that 63 years later, we still have people who cannot afford food in this country. 63 years later, we still have, you know, the youth as our greatest population, about 65 to 70%, most of them educated and without jobs. And the government is not talking about this. You cannot tell me 63 years later, we are still talking about, you know, mega corruption scandals in government, you know, from SHA, you know, from the stadiums that we are seeing, misplaced priorities, all right? And I want to agree with my brother. Wajir and the people living in Wajir have right to development, and they're Kenyans, all right? But it's important that we also align and prioritize, you know, what we want to do for Kenyans. I come from Nyeri County. We have the Rurengo Stadium in Nyeri Town, which has stalled for more than 6 years, all right? And this is where we have everybody coming. This is where we have young people coming to play. But that is, nobody is giving priority to that stadium. But you have the Ahmed Khalif Wajir Stadium, which is a new stadium, and no offense about it, but I mean, it's only fair that we balance. As we build Wajir, we need to build Kajiado, we need to build Nyeri, so that everybody has access to this development. But I think in summary, we are talking about 63 years of missed opportunities, 63 years of failed governance, if you ask me, 63 years of you know, a government, and especially the government now, that has such misplaced priorities, and that is tragic. Yeah.
Daniel, 63 years of what?
Thank you. As you know, when you, if you ask a 63-year-old person how, you know, basically what he feels, whether he has achieved anything, that is the equivalent. And they say usually life begins at 40. But by the time you're reaching 63, it means you're already approaching or you're in retirement. And so Kenya is in retirement, but we haven't really achieved much. But then I want to again, say that from looking at history, the previous leadership that we have experienced, if you compare that with the current leadership, I can say that after independence, we had, of course, almost stagnated, especially during the first, 40 years after independence, because there was no much meaningful development going on during that time. But we started realizing real development. If we look at in terms of taxation, during the Moi regime, we were not collecting more than 300 billion per year. I think it was oscillating around 200, 300 billion. But then when President Kibaki was elected, it went up to almost 800 billion the first year that Kibaki came to power. So you ask yourself, where was the money going during the Moi regime? So money was getting lost somewhere. Our taxation was not being declared, and this money was getting lost into someone's pocket. And so we lost a lot of opportunity for development those days. So thanks to President Kibaki, when he came on board, his first years, he was able to actually handle our development needs without much aid. But then after that, we had, of course, President Uhuru coming, and then, of course, our collection grew to trillions. Right now, we are almost, 4 trillion annual budget. And so I want, even though there's a lot of gloom, I want to give it to the current president. Within 3 years, he has done what the previous president was not able to do. He is not a perfect leader, but there is progress. There is progress. And of course, as we celebrate 63 years, there's a mixed bag of achievements. I want to say that, especially right now, if you look at the headlines, when you're talking about Ebola, this Ebola controversy and all these things happening, in terms of diplomacy, in terms of what I call sovereignty, it is like we are free, but we are not very free, because sovereignty should not just be declared. This is the time we should be practicing sovereignty. You understand? So we cannot have a situation whereby a country like America, in their foreign policy, they're very, very clear that we will not allow Ebola, into our country. Our first responsibility is to our citizens. Then fast forward to Kenya, we find, our own leadership. I was seeing P.S. Oluga saying that we are ready. Kenya is ready. We are ready for what? We don't have, we are not prepared. We don't have the capacity to handle Ebola in this country. Yet the U.S. has. They have the capacity. We don't have a lot of, you have seen how when COVID came, how it really almost, showed us things. But so when we have our leaders behaving, when our foreign policy is almost, is geared to please the Western powers, rather than protecting our citizens, then it's 63 years of failure, 63 years of diplomatic failure. So for me, I want to encourage our leadership that their first responsibility is to the citizens of Kenya. And any foreign policy, any kind of those who have done diplomacy, is that national interest is what informs foreign policy. And you cannot, you cannot basically project what you don't have. So in this case, when you look at the Ebola issue, it is very clear that the Kenyan people, even those who support the president, and I come from where I come from. I come from a two-term zone. And I can tell you, even the two-term people are against this Ebola center. So it is time for the government, the president, and he hasn't spoken. It's good he hasn't spoken. But it's for us to, face President Trump and let him know that, look, we loved you, But the Kenyan people, the Kenyan court has rejected this center.
Yeah.
So that we do not have, we don't want disturbances in our country. This thing is causing a lot of disturbance. Look at what happened in Laikipia. You know, the riots, and we are too busy. The other day we just had fuel issue. Now we are being, being disturbed by this Ebola issue. So I think 63 years, we should not be, experiencing something. But also, let me mention about the Wajir Stadium. The Wajir Stadium and what the president did in Wajir. For me, I want to say that the president is right. The president is right to actually, try and bring some development to Wajir, because this, for a long time, Kenya has been, divided into two. We have had Kenya 1 and Kenya 2. So the northeastern part have been totally neglected. The first regime and the Moi regime, these countries were not being treated as part of the country.
Yeah.
So we must demonstrate, that every citizen of Kenya, within the boundaries, actually deserve development. So for me, I want to applaud, the government for, developing that study. But we need more. We need more. So we cannot continue, for example, the development in Nyeri.
The devolution plays a very key role there. Much as we are giving accolades to the national government, we are 15 years into the new devolution, into the devolution.
Absolutely.
Daniel.
This is the problem. But of course, you've heard there was some controversy earlier on this year, where the governors of Northeastern Province, the leadership were being asked, what do you do with your money?
That is a question.
They are not using their money to build schools. So they have their students coming.
So then we don't have to wait for the national government to
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I put blame squarely in the political leadership in Northeastern. The Duales, all these people, they have been here for a long time. What have they been doing with the money? The equalization fund, where does it go? You get my point.
You're right.
So it is, even though we may blame others, but this rests squarely, at the feet of the leadership.
I mean, I want to take a break, but again, Wakili, you talked about the diplomatic failure with reference to what is happening between Kenya and the US and the Ebola thing.
Yes.
But when you come back to our political stability, it has to go back to where it all began. 15 years, devolution. When you look at the amount of money that these counties have been given 15 years later, somebody will ask you, please show me what you've done for it. Yes, they say we have got hospitals, we've improved schools and all that. And according to me, we should not be talking about marginalization today in those counties. Then it means that every county would now say that we've been marginalized, including Nairobi. If marginalization is the word again, does it make sense? I think. Just need to be a bit careful with that.
Well, I know. Yes, I know for some period of time, a very lengthy period of time, we've had the question about marginalization. We've had certain regions being excluded from enjoying the national cake. But at the very least, we must give us, we must lend certain gratitude to the Constitution, which we promulgated in the year 2010. So from the year 2010, and when we came up with this concept of devolution, the concept of devolution was to ensure that we devolve resources down to the very, marginalized counties or wards or whichever, segment of leadership that we have in this country. So from the year 2010 to now, this is approximately about 13 or 14, about 16 years. 16 years. So for 16 years, we've enjoyed a certain level of equality in terms of the distribution of resources from the national cake down to the county levels. And I know and I agree extensively with my colleague here that, well, when it comes to, the current status of our counties or our wards or constituencies as they are now, then we ought now to place the blame squarely on the leadership of that particular region.
Okay.
Because they were given something, they were given lemon, they ought to have made lemonade out of it, but they didn't. Some of them have opted to come and live luxuriously in Nairobi, in Isili, in South Sea, in Kilimani. So they have abandoned their people. And largely, I would believe that it's because we've stomached for far too long corrupt tendencies and runaway corruption amongst our leaders.
We take a break?
We can. Thank you.
We can. We'll be right back. Stay with us. We can take a break. Welcome back. So, Shadrach, yes, we can.
Indeed, Bwana.
Of course, tumekan. So, karibu sana. Now, let's continue. I want to ask you a question. Dr. Have we dealt with the three enemies? So remember the three enemies?
Yes.
Baba used to talk about them so much.
Yes.
Have we dealt with them? Because then, that was the biggest assignment after Wakoloni left.
Yes.
Have we dealt with them?
Thanks. That should be poverty, hunger, and illiteracy.
Exactly.
We have tried, but we haven't done our best. That is why I said when we started that it's 63 years of pain. Because much as we still have devolution, we still have a lot of our kids and a lot of families, and especially in northern Kenya, who do not have access to food, who do not have access, to the basics. When you're talking about the basics, you're talking about, food, shelter, medication, education. So I think it's a big shame to see that 63 years later, we still have a part of our population that do not have access to the basics, all right? Poverty is still very widespread in some parts of this country, simply because there's no proper governance. Much as, yes, we have devolution, we need to see very deliberate efforts, by the government in collaboration with the county governments to say that this is what you're going to do to support, to make sure that every kid has access to education. But what are we saying in this current regime? Capitation, free primary education was introduced in 2002 by Mwai Kibaki and his administration, but now it's becoming too expensive. The capitation is being reduced, and parents are being forced to go back to their pockets to pay for this education. Hunger, we still do not have systems to ensure that that the Kenyan people, have access to food, and especially, during famines, during floods, and so on. So I would say it's a big shame. It's embarrassing to see a country that is 63 years old still have got part of its population without access to food, without access to education. I've been to Mandera. I've been to Wajir, I've been to Garissa, I've been to Tana River, I've been to these parts that we call marginalized. And we still see Turkana, for example, you still have families and kids who can't go to school because either the schools are not accessible, infrastructure is wanting, there's no deliberate effort.
That's what about priorities, because when you can have a school, kids are not going to school.
Yes.
That is priority.
But again, they do not have food. So what is the priority here? You built a very good school, 20 kilometers away, and these kids do not have food. What will they do? They'll be forced to stay at home, all right? And nobody is even empowering these parents to be able to do meaningful economic activities, whether trade, whether agriculture, to be able to support these kids, because these kids will not be able to go to school, all right, without food. Much as whether the school is a kilometer or 20 kilometers away. So we haven't dealt with the three enemies as a country that we identified during independence: poverty, hunger, and illiteracy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Baba used to talk about it so much.
Yeah.
But then again, Daniel, when you look at again, as you also contribute to that, our political stance globally and regionally, that is and continentally, Africa Peace Foundation, where are we as a nation? Are we scratching just above the surface, or we are deeply rooted?
I think we still have a lot of we have a lot of way to go, and especially if you look at what is going on in South Africa with xenophobia.
Yeah,
where South Africans, who are the longest colonized people, and they relied on other African countries to help them with independence, are now having the audacity to tell other Africans to leave. And these Africans who are there are actually, including Kenyans, they have invested shops, they have invested in businesses that are employing South Africans. And the South Africans are not seeing, the enemy as the colonizers, but they're now looking at other Africans as the enemy. And so we saw the other day Ghana had to remove almost 300 of their citizens from that country. So when you look at what is going on in Africa, I think we don't have our priorities right. And especially if you remember, that Africa was basically a single continent. And then during the Berlin Conference, the colonialists came with a knife and just cut the continent into pieces, And they never cared whether you are dividing the Somalis from Somalia and Kenya, the Maasais from Tanzania and Kenya and all that. So the boundaries that we have, inherited were basically constructed by the colonialists. These are colonial heritage. And so it pains me when Africans stick to these colonial boundaries and use these same colonial boundaries as the basis.
To whose advantage? When this happens?
Of course, we become a laughing stock. The West laugh at us when they see us behaving this way, because you can see immigration has become an issue.
Yeah.
The Western people, the West has made it difficult for an ordinary African person even to get a visa to go to their countries. And when you go there, sometimes the way, common Africans get treated, even in the borders, it is terrible. They're being asked questions and, why are you coming here? Or when you go to the embassy, they ask you, bring title deed, bring what, you have to show. And when they come here, we don't even ask them questions at the airport. So there is no reciprocity. So African governments are kind of worshipping Western powers, and we are not giving them the same. I was watching Crazy Kenna yesterday, there was a Nini that he was showing that when these, the Western people come here, we give them fast track in our airport.
Yeah.
But when we see an African coming, we ask them many questions, we cite them and all that. So I think Africans have a long way to run. The Global Peace Foundation, we have a program called the Africa Renaissance Initiative. What we're saying is it's time for Africa to have a renewal. Let's have a conversation with ourselves. Let's have the African Union, basically focusing on even the Ebola issue. Why is it that the African Union, 19 years we have had Ebola in DRC. How come until today we don't have a solution for Ebola? You understand? How come we're still talking about America coming here to set up a quarantine? Why are we not able to solve this? And talk about Africa. Look at DRC. The reason we have even this Ebola coming to DRC is because of the war that we've had there. We have an extraction there. The West, China is going to come in to extract gold or minerals from Congo, and we are not even helping them to develop enough hospitals that can be able to protect the people. And the Ebola is basically as a result of human interaction with the animals. So we have had wars, we have people there interacting with animals, and as a result, they have contracting Ebola. So if we are really serious about Pan-Africanism, even President Ruto should have told President Trump.
Yeah.
The way he told Dangote, we'll take this thing to Tanga, the one of oil. Angesema, let's build this quarantine in what? In DRC, in Bunia. Because that is, usually when we talk about disease, this like COVID, they're better handled at source, so that there is no escape.
Yeah.
But when you allow the Western, when they're simply clearly saying they will not allow this in their country, and then you allow them to come into your borders, we have never had incidents of Ebola, it is crazy. It's like you are not thinking about your own citizenry. Yeah. Because the moment we have had this, even the West going out, when the animals start, when the West goes out, you never know. We're going to have this issue. So for me, I'm thinking Africans really need to think about who we are as a people, and we need to start loving ourselves. I'm happy that Ghana removed visas for Africans going into Ghana. And Kenya, I think most likely we have done so by now. But we need to stop this issue of even charging African visas. We need to stop this thing of African chasing other Africans, from going into their countries. We need to love ourselves. We need to have a Pan-African, we need to trade within ourselves. The oil issue, if we had, we are buying oil from Nigeria, we will not be suffering because of the problem in the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah. What about our political stability? When you look at when the white man left, of course the Mau Mau did their bit, and our first leaders also took charge of the country. Have we made it? Have we matured politically speaking? I'm asking this, and I know you're going to defend it because you're also running for a political seat, and you're going to say, yes, we have. But have we?
Well, I think...
Defend yourself.
I think, and I will say this with a lot of humility, I think the black man only replaced the white man. And that has become very characteristic of our leadership. That you speak against the oppression, the suppression by your predecessor, only for you now, again, upon being sworn into public office, upon now taking in the instruments of power, you now just you adopt hook, line, and sinker the kind of behavior that was being meted by your predecessor. What you actually questioned, like currently as we speak, we are having discussions about 1 term and 2 term, and you will look, if you look very keenly on the people who are telling you 1 term, are the same people who propagated the kind of difficulties that we are currently trying to endure. Yes, I have spoken and I have said, we were attending some matanga at home just the other day, and I mentioned to people and I told them that you should not be distracted by this 1 term, 2 term. These are just the distractors meant to ensure that people get political survival. And it is true, and it is so because if you're keen on the kind of record, the kind of actions or inactions that have been taken by your leaders, then you will know who to attribute to the kind of difficulties that we are experiencing now. When we speak about the housing levies, when we speak about the SHI, the SHA, when we speak about, the finance bills of the year 2024, 2023, if we are to place a name or to give certain accountability, if you are to make people accountable for their actions, then a majority of the people who are saying 1 term, that this government has failed on a number of occasions, are the same people who passed these laws. So let us just be honest with ourselves, that indeed where the white man left us, we're still there. We are still there because the black man, upon taking on the whims of power, decided that the land that was being enjoyed by the white man, they are going to take it for their own personal satisfaction. They're not going to share it with all and sundry. We decided at the point of getting independence that we had 3 problems. We had the problem about illiteracy, we had the problem about poverty and disease, isn't it? So what have we done with the question about illiteracy? We have come up with certain things called bursaries, bursary funds, so that if you are politically aligned to a certain faction or to an individual who is currently enjoying the whims of power, then you will be a beneficiary of those bursaries.
Is it totally, entirely?
That is what is happening even in Kajiado North constituency. We have parents that are suffering. They are needy and deserving of those bursary funds, but they can't get it because they are not telling the current MP 2 term. They are saying 1 term, and for that reason they cannot be given these bursaries. Secondly, we have a policy within our constituency, Kajiado North, that if you are a student who has scored a D and below, you cannot be a beneficiary of the bursaries. That is a policy coming from the NGCDF. And the question I have always asked, is it not against logic and common sense that the person who is failing in education should actually be the beneficiary of this bursary so that we ensure they are constantly in class? That has always been my argument, that let us ensure that the people who are disadvantaged academically are given enough reasons to be in school, because we have certain students.
Motivation.
Yes, we have certain students that are they're not scoring well in school, or academically they're not performing well, largely because they are always absent from school. They have parents who live from hand to mouth. They can't sustain, they can't sustain an expenditure of, the payment of house rent, the payment or the purchase of food, and again, also stomach an expenditure when it comes to the payment of school fees. So we still have illiteracy as a problem that the leadership of the now have refused to address. Because if you want to address the question of illiteracy, then what you need to do is to ensure that you make academics or education free and accessible to all. If I desire to be in a class, there should not be any hindrance from the leadership of the day. I have told them that if they elect me as their MP Kajiado North 2027, because I'm going to be the MP, I'm going to ensure that secondary schools in our constituency become free. At the very least, ensure that we have a basic education that is free and accessible to all.
I will have to ask you, how are you going to fund that?
It is possible. We have seen it being done elsewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, you see, you have money. Even you have money. But you have priorities. So you choose to prioritize what is important.
Okay.
So the priorities that we have as a constituency are so far away from meeting the challenges that we identified long before. In 1963, even not 1962, we identified that we have these problems. So if you have identified that as a problem, what you do with the money that you have, ensure that you prioritize education. We have seen it. We have seen it in it's in Keharu. We have seen it in Githongori. We have seen it even in Madhira. We have seen members of parliament prioritizing education for their people. But what you see, you know, with these bursaries that are dished out to people who are politically aligned to the current leadership, is something that it's a token being used for politics. You know, you want to gain an unfair advantage over others because of your use of this as a tool.
I don't know what Dr. Gitonga is going to say about that, because Dr.
Yes.
Is it the same thing happening in Odaya? But anyway, you'll also take your time to answer that. But when you were speaking, I realized this, probably we picked that textbook from our colonizers.
Yes.
Of course. We picked that textbook and we've not returned it back to the shelf. It's the same textbook we're still using. Marginalization, lack of equality. We have not yet slain the three three enemies. We've not.
Divide and rule.
The divide and rule is still happening. Actually, currently is happening in our political arena. Well, there must be a silver lining somewhere, but we must be worried.
First, I wanted to comment about Ebola as well, before I come to that point. Ebola is a very dangerous disease, dangerous virus. And if it's dangerous to the Americans, it's also perhaps even more dangerous to Kenyans, all right? And what we have seen is, one of the things we have discussed even in this program before is failure by government to communicate adequately and to communicate properly, all right? Because we must all agree that whether Ebola is going to come into Kenya through Americans or through any other way, if there's a global outbreak, eventually it will find itself, you know, into a country. So it is okay, it is proper to have a quarantine facility, all right? Whether it's built through support or whether it's built by our own resources, it's a very good thing to have, all right? But the communication that this is going to be exclusively for the Americans, you know, and that lack of communication is what is causing all this anxiety by the Kenyans, all right? So I think I would want to challenge the government communication systems to please communicate right and communicate in advance, all right? And we are totally against it because exactly what you're talking about, it's colonial legacy. You cannot tell me that now, and we all know, for example, that our healthcare infrastructure is nowhere compared to the US in healthcare infrastructure. If we were hit by Ebola, I don't know how long we would survive.
It doesn't have a vaccine.
It would be terrible.
It doesn't have a vaccine.
Yeah, it would be terrible. So I think it's only proper and fair that this government communicates properly. And I think Kenyans are also disappointed to see that this is the current topic of the day, and the president couldn't talk about it yesterday in his speech in Wajir. All right, he needs to talk about it. He needs to reassure Kenyans why his government is taking such decisions. They could be right, perhaps, but if the communication is wrong, then nobody gets to understand it, and at the end of the day, it's not taken right. Coming back to your question, colonial legacy still remains a blow to our country, yes. That everything that the white man was doing was taken by, you know, the very Kenyans, the very black people who took power, all right, after the colonialists, you know, in terms of, you know, getting all this property, continuing to frustrate, to intimidate, collaborating with the same colonial powers to, you know, to frustrate the Kenyan people. So I think we lost, in my view, a whole 40 years before we got ourselves a new constitution. 1963, all right, all the way to about 2010, I think that was time lost.
Yeah.
All right, and that is why I must really give it to ourselves for getting ourselves a new constitution in 2010. Because remember, the 2010 constitution now is very clear when it comes to issues about land ownership, land management, because that has been a thorn in the flesh since 1963. Issues to do with integrity in leadership, chapter 6 of our constitution. So I would say that we lost quite some years until 2010. But I think 2010 then marks a new beginning in terms of devolution, in terms of making sure that resources, get to the Mwananchi, all right? County governments, NGCDF, which started way back in 2002, leadership at the county levels, county assemblies. So it's a good start in 2010, but we need to strengthen devolution. We need to make sure that we continue to see that it works. The 2010 Constitution is a fantastic document. Actually, many countries talk about it, but are we deliberate as a people and as government to see that it works? Yeah.
When you say that, I was just looking at Wakili. He's a very happy man when you say that it's a fantastic document.
It is. It's progressive.
It's progressive.
It's one of the most progressive documents we have in the world.
Correct.
Again,
But are we deliberate to see that it works? That's the question.
Actually, that is the question I wanted to ask, because the blatant misuse and not following the constitution fully, Daniel, it's a painful sight for many people, actually, just to take that beautiful document and put it down and just do something contrary to what we're supposed to do. Let's talk about the issue to do with ethnicity when you look at equality. In Kenya, we're supposed to be one people.
Yeah.
You talked of divide and rule, right?
Yeah.
Perhaps the current leadership, I'm not saying the current one, but ever since we got our independence, I talked about we took the textbook from our colonizers and said, now this is what you're going to use. They used the divide and rule, and they actually successfully managed to run away with it. Where are we going to put this textbook at some point and say, now guys, it's enough. We have to get our own system and run with it?
I think we must, agree we need to implement the Constitution in total. We cannot have a beautiful document which we do not use. Our leaders must be leaders who actually, lead using the Constitution. We are a constitutional democracy. But unfortunately, we don't. It's just a book that we just put in the shelf there, and that is basically the biggest disappointment that I have. Victor, we have in this country a constitution that allows for, of course, separation of powers, for example. Separation of powers, whereby the legislature, should be independent from the judiciary and from the executive. The legislator should basically keep the executive in check and the judiciary. You get my point? But we have a situation sometimes where we see that the people in parliament are kind of in bed with the executive. They don't have the independence of mind to say this is wrong. For example, right now, when we have this Ebola controversy talking, I should have expected parliamentarians. By now, they should have called people to parliament, and they should have been critiquing this issue. It should not be left to the people in Laikipia to be the one demonstrating. No. Where are the leaders that we elected?
Having a face-off with the soldiers.
They're not. They're not. So this is a problem I have. And, we still have, I don't know, they say sucking up. We are still a country whereby everyone wants to be politically correct. Whereby if I am maybe in two-term, then I have to agree with everything that the president is saying, even if it is wrong. If I'm in one term, then I have to oppose everything that the president is doing. So we must be rational people. You get my point? And this is, this is the problem. We need leaders who can give sound advice to the president, for example. Right now, there's a friend of mine the other day when Arsenal was beaten by PSG. this friend of mine called Jacob, alisema, I said, no, sio wabaya, ni wale wamemsurround ndio wabaya. Now,
you know, so that discussion.
So
we're doing very well.
I want to say, you know, that the president, the president, actually, is not a bad person.
Yeah.
But the people that are there, the leaders that he has surrounded himself with, are the ones who are basically failing in their job. For example, when it comes to Minister of Health, look at P.S. Oluga. He stands there and says that we are ready. And he knows very well. If you go to Kenyatta Hospital, you can see the problem we have. You get my point? So these are people who are not able to come and tell the president, look, Mr. President, this is the situation. I know you have good intention. We need to have we have agreed with the Americans to do this, but the reality is this.
Okay.
Tell them this. So we need to have leaders who lead using the Constitution, but not those who are saying yes, sir, just because they want to please the president. Sometimes the president needs people who can tell him no. You can tell him no, Mr. President, this is wrong. Let us go this way. Because when you are a president, you depend on the people to give you all kinds of advice. But right now we have people who cannot give the president an advice which they think the president doesn't like. And this is a problem with this country.
Yeah. Also, do we have a silver lining? I mean, look at it this way. Shadi, where will you be 63 years from now?
63. I'll be retired, by the way. I'll be coaching boxing. Yes. I'll still be alive, by the way.
Amen to that.
62 plus 30-something. I mean, 100 years is not so much.
That's so much.
Yes.
Uncle Moody Awori is around there.
Halafu.
You know?
I'm not an exception.
Great. Look at it this way. 63 years later, is there silver lining for this country?
Well, Victor, I think hope cannot be lost. We are alive because we are hopeful of a better tomorrow, regardless of what, the risks that will come with having Ebola, COVID-19, HIV and AIDS and all this illiteracy and poverty. We still cannot lose hope. And I want to acknowledge what Daniel Juma has said. And I want to applaud him. I mean, it's not quite often. It's not quite often that we meet people that we think alike.
Yeah.
I agree entirely with him that it is not everything that the government does is wrong. And it's not everything that the opposition says the government has done is also wrong. So we just need as a people to be rational. And if you want to be rational, I mean, you must also desire to drink from the cup of research. Also try, dig deep and establish what the truth is for you. Because we have an opposition sometimes or often that tends to spew a lot of venom and to question everything that the government is doing. Again, we have a government, sometimes it will go a very long length to tell us what is not truth to be truth. So we just need to be careful about what we are consuming as a people, so that you are capable as an individual to judge between what is being said that is correct and what is not correct. Well, when it comes to the questions about Ebola, you know, so much has been said about it, and it's important that we balance the discussion. Well, I begin by stating that the headline on our Nation newspaper is not factually correct. It could have been factual or have been correct at the time of publishing the newspaper. But long after that, I think the president yesterday had a media briefing with the journalist in the northeastern region after the Madaraka Day celebrations in Wajir. And he made a very good case about why we should be having this facility built. The only discomfort I have in all this is this. Well, we agree that we are bordering Uganda. Our border or the border between Kenya and Uganda is quite very porous. I've been there before. We went to Bungoma and we just walked to Uganda and we came back. So there is a sense in which you will believe that now that we have had about 9 cases reported in Uganda, that being rational human beings, being people who must live under the credence that being forewarned is being forearmed, knowing that your neighbor has suffered from Ebola and there is a chance or probability that you will be infected because of the porous nature of your boundary. It is important that you take certain precautionary measures. The only difficulty that I think a majority of the people are speaking about, and you will go and read an article written by my village mate, Mr. Macharia Gaido. He was written in the national newspaper. And Macharia Gaido, you know, he is my village mate and...
good friend of mine.
Yes, very sober man. He's written a very good article which I have read in the morning. And he acknowledges that it is important that we have a facility that is going to protect us either now or in future or against, you know, certain infections of Ebola. I think it's down there. You'll go and read the article.
I'll get
yes. So the only difficulty that he appears to be having, and I think I share in that opinion, is we cannot have an establishment of that nature, a quarantine facility built that will only be enjoyed by the United States of American citizens. So if we have to establish such a quarantine facility, it must be for all and sundry. And I think that is what the president was saying. The president yesterday was saying that this establishment will be made for use by even our Kenyan security men that are currently in Congo and stand a chance or stand the risk of suffering from Ebola. So the only thing probably I would want us to do, because we are having a government that is speaking from both ends of its mouth. The only clarity I will seek on my part, so that I am well guided and grounded on this subject matter, is having a copy of the agreement that was entered between America and the Republic of Kenya. So if I have that agreement, if that agreement is made available, and I think that is what the doctors have said, and the lawyers are saying, we are saying that make the agreement available to all of us. Let us now read and understand and appreciate in full flavor the contents of that agreement, so that from where I sit, I don't have to get lost. I don't have to get lost wondering, well, it is good to have this establishment, but will it also serve me if I am infected by this Ebola virus? So if that clarity is made to the members of the public, I don't think it will be important for us to be demonstrating on the streets. The only reason you see Kenyans demonstrating on the streets, number one, is because we do not have enough or sufficient information, adequate information, to place us at an advantaged position of understanding the risks that we face as a people by having this facility established in Kenya. Number two, we have a parliament that has failed. Like, for example, my member of parliament, the only thing that he does is just, you know, writing on Facebook. You know, you want to raise questions against the government by tagging the president on Facebook. I mean, you cannot have the same, you cannot have the same avenues of complaints as myself as a Kenyan. The only place I can complain is either on this TV or on social media. My member of parliament is on TV and on social media. So what is the difference between the member of parliament and me as a civilian, as a normal Kenyan mwananchi? So I think, and I agree entirely with Daniel, that it is important that our members of parliament take their oath of office seriously. It is important that we have some heads rolling. The members of parliament enjoy direct sovereign power from the people. We've given them direct sovereign power. Unlike Duale is enjoying delegated authority from his master, the president, who is enjoying direct sovereign power. So Duale and probably the Prime Cabinet Secretary, this is His Excellency Musalia Mudavadi, and the other cabinet secretaries, do not enjoy the same power and authority as members of parliament. So it will have been incumbent upon our members of parliament at this stage, while we are complaining, first, they ought to have arrested this issue long before it was published on our national newspapers. Because this thing was actually published in the locals after Kenyans got wind of word that there is a certain arrangement between the United States of America and Kenyans from publications happening in America. So yes, we just eavesdropped what was happening, because you see the social media has made the world a global village. So when we got wind of that, we started having the discussions amongst ourselves. Then the national newspaper picked up the issue. After picking up the issue, the Honorable Adan Duale reacted to the issue. Then what happened to the members of parliament? They started publishing on the social media, on Facebook. So our member of parliament should be people who are able to protect us even before things happen. They ought to have come up with, to have begun this conversation long before we even began it on social media. And again, assuming that probably they were asleep. They were asleep, they were just, sleepwalking throughout the sessions in Parliament and what they're supposed to be doing. Then, at the very least, they ought to have summoned the Cabinet Secretary that is in charge of that docket. Health, the Honorable, the CS, Aden Duale, come and respond to certain queries.
Okay.
But now, lawyers have to save this country by rushing to court to stop some of these things. Yet we have a body, people who have been sworn in, people who are drawing salaries, and they are supposed to be doing oversight over the executive.
That case is the course list today to be had this morning.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, okay. So let's come to a close. Daniel, as we say that there is a silver lining, do we have to buy Kenya.org, if you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, well, of course, we have to basically, invest in who we have as a nation.
Yes.
Kenya has to, promote what it has. 63 years down the line,
we have to buy Kenya.
We need to, to be able to catalog what do we have in Kenya. Our coffee, our tea, all the companies that are, producing whatever producing in Kenya should be able to sell those products outside the country. That is the only way we are able to get more, more foreign reserves for our country. And this is one of the reasons why, I created buykenya.org, whereby every person, every trader, from the Mamamboga, you can go to buykenya.org, you can put in what you are selling, so that someone in Belgium is looking for your product can actually find it. This is what we need to do. And so, as I close, let me just say this. When COVID happened, you remember COVID, when COVID happened, I think we spent a lot of money even to establish isolation centers, right? For COVID. So we should, at this rate, 3 years later, we cannot be saying that we don't have so we need to get this American money because we don't have. What happened to the money? What happened to the centers that we established during COVID? These are the places that now we can be able to reorganize and change it now for Ebola. You get my point? But now we spend a lot of money, and right now we are saying that we only have to do this. And so that's one of the reasons why I am very, very hopeful that if we have the right people in the right places in this country, I think we can go far. Let us invest in our country. Let us promote what we have. Let us, yes, I saw they're saying about, the president said investing in livestock, in Wajir. We need to export the meat from Wajir. We need to export the meat from, we need to ensure that we have self-sufficiency, food sufficiency.
This is again, Dr. If you can even go on your, it's called buykenya.org. I mean, Wakil, this is so refreshing. I mean, you can just take a look at it. How far have you gone?
Today I've hired almost 15 people that we are flagging off. We want every county, to be able to catalog what they have. Like, for example, in Nyeri.
Yes.
What do you have in Nyeri, that can be sold in Kenya and also abroad? Yeah. We want the people of Nyeri to go into buykenya.org, put, whatever they're selling there, so that someone is looking for your products in America or in Belgium, they can order directly from you. But that, as we talk, is not there. We need to have the Kenya Postal Directories, we need to have yellow. No, we don't have it. Yeah. So we are creating this so that our commercial attaches, when you go outside the country to sell our country, you tell someone, look, you're looking for Kenyan coffee, you'll find the dealers there. So it's a simple, it's not brain science.
It's a refreshing website. It's a refreshing website there.
Yeah.
I mean, 15 people, that's a good way to go. Creating employment. Odaya, wanasemaje?
So far, so good. But I wanted to touch on something my two colleagues have said.
Yes.
If Kenya is going to be a great country, if the next 63 years are going to be better than the last 63 years, then it all boils down to the right leadership, all right? Competent leaders, empathetic leaders who are able to listen to their people, leaders who are very keen on integrity, leaders who follow the constitution. And that is why, because of that leadership gap that exists, I am personally running for that parliamentary seat in 2027, all right? So that I'm able to to fill in the leadership gap, to be able to represent my people effectively, to be able to say that this is wrong, this is right, regardless of whatever could be happening, all right? Because leadership, and especially representation, is very important, okay? That this is wrong, this we don't need to do, and that is why even as we talk about investing in Kenya, one of the things that we must be very deliberate about is value addition, Bwana Daniel, all right? So that we're also able to enhance manufacturing, we're also able to promote local jobs, so that if we're able to harvest coffee from Othaya, then we're able to process it, be able to add value to it, and sell it, whether abroad or locally, as a finished product, so that we are not exporting raw materials and then importing.
That goes to,
all right?
Proper leadership.
Proper leadership. It's all about proper leadership. But Othaya, we are set, we are ready. We are ready for what I call a 1974 moment, where the last time we elected a competent young leader was 1974, and that young leader was Mwai Kibaki. And we are creating that moment in 2027, where Othaya is going to have another competent young leader by the name Dr. Anthony Gitonga, who will be able to represent his people, who will be able to champion the needs, the aspirations, the desires of his people, and not just to sit down and sleep and be able to see things happening, but to work for the people and by the people,
very good,
as envisaged in our constitution.
What about Kajiado North? 1970 what? Kajiado? This is 1970.
Kajiado, we are having a renaissance. Yes. We just need to reset Kajiado North to where it was before the 2022 elections, where we had peace reigning throughout the constituency. In fact, if you recall very kindly, that in the year 2007, when we have the post-election violence, you know, throughout the whole country, Kajiado North enjoyed a lot of tranquility, a lot of peace. We just need to return Kajiado North to where it was, because since the year 2022, 2023, because of the certain decisions that have been made by the political leader around that area, we've been suffering from a lot of insecurities. Over and above that, we just need to ensure that, you know, Kajiado North being a metropolis, that our roads become accessible. We have very pathetic roads. We have very pathetic roads, and we have a lot of PR stunts being done by the current leadership that we just need to eliminate. We just need to have someone that is forthright. We just need to have someone that is ambitious enough and very eager to, you know, go out there and reach out for resources for its people, and that is Shadrach Wamboi. So 2027 we shall be taking back the seat to where we were.
Thank you, gentlemen. We have to close it there. Allow me to read just 1 second what you talked about Machera Gaido. Machera Gaido said that a facility that as such being put up at the Kenya Air Base in Laikipia is thus an absolute necessity, but rather it is completely unacceptable when established by a foreign government only for its own people. That is the question of now what happens if there is a soldier or there is a civilian outside, you know, the barracks who has contracted the disease. Now what happens to that?
So that is really the problem.
So many questions that are there. All right. I think that's a big question there. Thank you so much. Wakili, Shadrach Wamboi, who is an advocate of the High Court.
Thank you.
Kajiado North is here. Amekuja mapema. Asante sana for coming. Daniel Juma Mondi, who is Africa Regional Representative of Global Peace Foundation. Asante sana for coming.
Thank you.
Please go on and check the website, buykenya.org. I'm already a member there. Asante sana. And of course, Anthony Gitonga, the great people of Othaya, he's here. Amekuja kufanya kazi. All right, gentlemen, asante sana for coming. We hope the next 63 years will be a better one. As Wamboi says that he'll be
alive.
Could be coaching boxing.
I just want, in my retirement, I just want to do boxing and law. That's it. I teach law and...
Have a good morning.
Thank you, Victor.